Here's how I went from a 2-time college dropout to making $22K a month in my business in just over 4 years. I've had a pretty wild ride over the last almost half decade and worn a ton of different hats with my career. And I've finally found my footing running a ghostwriting agency that helps online trainers find high ticket clients on autopilot. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of everything, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe. It really helps push it in the algorithm. 4 years ago, I made the decision to drop out of college for the second time. Well, why did I drop out in the first place? The first time I dropped out of college, it was because I was playing basketball on a team out in Ontario, and every single college in Ontario went on strike for 6 or 7 weeks. Because the strike was so long and it spanned across the entire province, every college made a deal with the students. If you drop out, we will give you whatever money you didn't use on the school year back to you. I wasn't really having a great time at the college, if I'm being honest. I didn't really fit in with the team I was playing on, and my coach and I didn't really see eye to eye, so I decided, fuck it, I'll go back to Winnipeg, live with my parents for a bit, figure out what I'm gonna do, and start a new path. And that's exactly what I did. Went back to live with my parents, tried to figure out a plan, and most importantly, got like 80% of my money back. So in this time frame, I was pretty depressed and playing video games every day, but there was one thing I would do while playing video games. No, it's not that. I did that after video games. I would listen to podcasts every day while I play video games. And after a while of doing it, I thought, I think I can do this. So I started my own podcast in 2018, and then I started stand-up comedy about 4 months later, before 2018 ended. And I did all this while I was taking a communications degree at the University of Winnipeg. If you don't know where Winnipeg is, don't look it up. You're not missing much. So for the next calendar year, I was juggling quite a bit. I was in school, I was doing my podcast, I was doing stand-up comedy, I was pretending to work at whatever day job I was doing at the time. I was lying to my parents about enjoying that day job that I was working, but I didn't realize how much it was gonna burn me out. I finished my first year at school, and as I was starting my second year, I was beyond overworked. I would get up at 4 a.m. to go work at Planet Fitness. I'd work there for about 4 or 5 hours, jump on a bus, and take the bus for at least an hour all the way downtown to the University of Winnipeg. Then when school was done, I'd go to work, come home, work on my podcast, and then do some writing for stand-up comedy because there were only about 2 or 3 open mics that week. And then on the nights where there were open mics, I probably wouldn't have worked that day, so I'd go to the open mic, get home at like 11, go to sleep, crash, wake up at like 4. It was brutal. I would constantly be sleeping at school, trying to catch up on sleep, not doing my schoolwork because I didn't give a shit, and asking myself, how do I get out of this cycle? Then one day, on one of those hour-long bus rides, I was reading Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And he asked me 2 questions that changed my life forever. The first was, when you think of your dream life with no limitations, what skills do you need to get there? So I made a big long list and I wrote down the skills I need to get there. And then he asked, what kind of life experiences do you need to get there? And so I looked down at this piece of garbage bus I was riding, going to the University of Winnipeg, that was probably gonna get me like a PR job working for the Winnipeg Jets for like $70K a year. And I realized, not this. Within 5 minutes of reading that, I knew I'm gonna drop out of school for the second time. And that's what I did. I dropped out of school, my parents told me not to, I lied to them, dropped out anyway. Then a week later, told them I actually dropped out, and then decided I'm going to go all in on stand-up and podcasting. And because every single podcast episode I did at the time required a guest, I interviewed so many different people and built my network to the point where one of the guests actually hired me to work at their content agency. This happened within 10 days of me dropping out of school. So I got my first job at a content agency in October 2019. I worked for them for about 1.5 years, and in early 2021, I also moved from Winnipeg to Toronto. If I'm being honest, I moved to Toronto because I was still chasing the stand-up dream, and everything I was doing at this content agency was just in order to fuel the stand-up comedy career that I really wanted. In July 2021 though, things got a bit murky when that content agency decided to let me go. I'm not gonna get into the specifics of what happened, I don't wanna make it seem like I'm bad-mouthing them, but I was not fully on board with their decision of letting me go. However, I was at peace with it, and I recognized that it was probably coming for quite some time because I'm not sure if I fit the culture as well as I'd like to believe I did. And when they let me go, I decided I'm gonna make it work. I'm not moving back to Winnipeg, and I'm gonna stay in Toronto. I ended up getting a job at another content agency in Orlando, and I worked for them for about another 1.5 years. Now, before I stopped working with that content agency, in about summer of 2022, one of my clients told me, hey man, I don't know if you know this, but you're really good at this. Like, you're really good at online marketing. I was like, oh, thanks man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. And he goes, why are you doing stand-up comedy? So I pulled out my, long-winded speech of how stand-up fills up my soul and how the world needs to laugh. And He went, okay, but like stand-up as an industry is stupid, you know that, right? And I go, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you need to grind for at least 10 years if you want to see some success. You got to go to open mics like 5 to 7 nights a week, grinding where there might not even be an audience, and you got to wait in line to go up for your spot, and you're telling jokes to other comedians. Like, it's a tough industry, and you already have some success with what you're doing now. You're doing quite well for yourself. I don't think you realize how well you're doing compared to people your age. Stop doing comedy. And that was kind of a hard pill for me to swallow. And I had also been having a friend who also did stand-up for a decade tell me to quit doing comedy. And so I meditated on it for a while, and after completing a stand-up comedy tour in Nova Scotia in September 2022, I decided that I was going to stop doing it. It was tough to swallow at the time, but if I'm being honest, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And so in Q4 of 2022, I poured a lot more time into marketing, advertising, copywriting, online writing. Whatever you think of, I read about it. And I applied it to the job I was working at the time and the clients that I was serving. However, in January 2023, the agency I was working for wanted me to be an employee, and they wanted me to be working for the same rate that I was working for as a contractor. So I couldn't write things off, and well, I couldn't get any outside work. Because I was a contractor, I had found outside work with other clients, and it was fine because I was a contractor. But if I was going to be an employee, I would have to slash my income almost in half, and I wouldn't be able to write things off. I told them no, and they let me go. One of my clients, Corey Armstrong, actually left that agency to continue working with me, and because I was able to get him such incredible results, I don't know if you know this, but within 3 months of working with him, I was able to double his monthly income, and as soon as I stopped working at that agency, I was able to get him to 40K and then 50K the next month. And because I had already built quite a big network from my time podcasting and doing stand-up, I also had a lot of people I could ask who needed help with their social media and their content. And that's why I always tell people when you're at the beginning of your journey, do whatever you feel pulled towards, because you never know how that can shape your career going forward. The podcast taught me how to network, it taught me how to create long-form content, and it taught me how to build an audience. And so after about 2-3 weeks of being on my own, I figured I need coaching because I have no idea what I'm doing. So I went and invested in Dakota Robertson's Growth Ghosts, which is one of the best investments I ever made. And after that, I was on such a learning high that I just looked for even more programs. I signed up for Premium Ghostwriting Academy with Nicholas Cole and Dickie Bush. I signed up for the FE Growth Partner. I signed up for George Ten's Copy Thinking Community. I signed up for the second part of PGA, the Premium Ghostwriting Mastermind. And I signed up for Leon Castillo's Elite Founders. I've spent over, I think, $63,000 USD in my learning. A lot of people ask me, how did you do it? You know, you've been doing online marketing for longer than you let people know. But even then, once you got let go by your job, your ascent has been really crazy. How did you do that? Here's my answer. I've invested over $63,000 USD in online coaching and mentorship in just 2023. After a certain point, you get out what you put in. And the more you invest to learn from people who know what they're doing and the communities that come with that, the way quicker you're going to get to your goals. At the time of recording this, it's December 2023, and so it's been about 11 months since I've been on my own. But since then, there have been a lot of iterations, a lot of adjusting, and a lot of attempts at figuring out what my business model is. And I finally feel like I've come to a place where I feel confident in what I sell, and I know I can get results for the people I serve. I tell you all that to say this. You're always one decision away from changing your life, and you never know how the seeds you plant now will impact your future. Oh, and read Tony Robbins. That guy's a beast. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on what your biggest takeaway was. I really appreciate you sticking around, and hey, if you want more content like this, make sure you check out the next video.